for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to another video with me here today. Today we're gonna be a little different. Today this video will be coming more from the feminine perspective of life, and I know that usually in most of my videos you'll hear me talk in a certain way, which is very fast, hyper energetic. Sometimes I need to yell as well because there's always a body of water behind me, something like that. So today I wanted to move more into this feminine essence of life and talk about how it relates to what Spirit calls the organic ascension, because it is so important at this time. So we already know that spirit and form are not supposed to be separate, and they truly are not, okay? And in knowing this, we automatically become awakened to the fact that we're truly, truly emerging within our ascension, within our body. Our body is the vessel. So when we understand this, nothing else is as important as that. So Spirit always tells me that knowledge is easy, embodiment is not. You know, being in the body and translating these light codes and new frequencies and, you know, undergoing this ascension process is not as easy, right? So first, I want to take you to a very simple fact that we live in this constructed reality, right? Some people call it the prism planet, some people call it the matrix, the bubble. You know, there's many names for this shield of energy that has been keeping Earth in a certain own body limitation. So her own body, which is her body of consciousness, could not ascend to a new state of level of density. The same goes for our bodies. So the first thing to know about ascension truly is that we're waking up within the matrix, and therefore we're waking through programs. We're bursting forth into life, which is organic, through waking up within a program. So even ascension and many new age infiltrations, which became very much the standard norm, especially since I would say early 2000s. From there on, from the millennium, it really started to elevate how much hijacking of the original knowing and carrying forth the codes of true ascension, which is always organic. So after that, there's been so much disinformation, misinformation, and misleading of people within not just the general life stream and how life is lived in terms of what societies are and what our cultures are, but also what ascension is. Ascension truly is a spiral of life. And many times when you begin to ascend organically, you're going to start, you know, opening up and then closing off again. And it's like a truly organic journey of expanding and contracting, because the body is always integrating something new. So when you first start waking up in this so-called program, in the matrix, a lot of people get confused. Why? It's because out of all programs that are written and encoded in the matrix, there is also a program for ascension. A lot of people call this the Archon ascension or Metatronic ascension. I've recently heard someone use the term Messiah ascension. Truly, I've never heard that term before, to be honest. The only thing that Holy Spirit shows me is organic ascension, because ascension is truly a physical act. You don't move from one state of density into a different state of density by bypassing your body, right? You can't. You can't. It's non-existent. It doesn't happen. So what this idea is, shifting from 3D to 5D through the fourth density informational infusion, right? It's like going through a bandwidth of increased energy that's encoded with new light streams that are bringing forth a new level of being informed to us as humans. And it's happening as well through the sun, and the sun expanding our light quotient level through the light DNA upsurgence, right? And this all happens for our body. No one can ascend mentally alone. So a lot of these ascension programs were truly designed to keep people even more mentally confused and locked in and kept only in what we call the mental brain processing. Well, organic ascension begins with heart ascension, which is like, as always, an infusion of deep, deep love, this source love. You can call it true love, you can call it divine love, you can call it the immaculate love. Whatever it is pure love. So you can't ascend only informationally. We've talked about this before in probably most of my videos. And the reason why I teach organic ascension, because for me that is the only ascension. There is no other ascension. You cannot ascend mentally. You're going to have a perception, an ideology, a belief about it, but it will continue to keep you in a state that's like unlocked in a specific frequency band, because you're not ascending with the body. The body ascension, therefore, it's a little more complex because it requires a lot of ascension descension process, a lot of unprogramming, a lot of dissolving the darkness, a lot of moving into extreme, spheres of darkness. Ultimately, at times, the specific times of our ascension configuration, the way our soul has designed it. And we also have to know every body is different. Every body is so unique. When people start going into this ascension as a program, in the New Age, there's a lot of these channelings now online, like these different archangelic forces. And then people start saying they're having contact and conversations with these forces. I'm really always withdrawn when it comes to this, because here's the thing, okay? When you start opening up your body as a vehicle for spirit, which is what it is, and not just a vehicle, it is an instrument of light, is a natural divine intelligence that becomes naturally susceptible to more and more spirit, which means you're also embodying the spirit, not just channeling the spirit. So when people are having these communications with spirits, or saying they're channeling different spirits or inviting them in, a lot of the times when you still haven't awakened your body consciousness and took it to the next step, to the next density level, you're going to vibrate within a certain range or a certain field. And this field, when you're still not like brought the light, the pure light quotient of spirit into the body, is still vulnerable to all kinds of energies out there, which we always say they're vying for our attention, right? And they're working really hard at this time. So the thing is here that we, as human instruments of light, don't get to a certain spectrum of light until we ourselves are vibrationally a match. And you might say, well, we're never going to be, because these angelic beings are like light beings. Well, you have to activate the light being principle within you, and that is when you're truly in communication, and that communication is not mental. I've talked about this before, that angels or the angelics really don't communicate with as much as people believe that to be true. Don't communicate directly with thought transference. It's more of an infusion of light, because they're light beings, like true Christ-serving, holy beings, light beings that serve the divine plan within the grace of immaculate design. And when we become ourselves like a vibrational match within the vehicle of spirit, we truly start being informed in that way. Light being to light being, that's truly, for me, a pathway which we need to break into and break through. So this archonic principle, this archonically designed ascension, is just another program. It's a false program. And it does serve a purpose, because, as you know, a lot of people first wake up in and within that program. So they start to veil by veil, like unfolding, blossoms of this, what keeps us layered and what keeps us held in a certain idea of what reality is. So ascension is both ascending and descending equally, because each time we will open up to a new amount of light, we're going to also have to bring back that to the body. That's why ascension and descension are both one. I'm going to give you one example. Just recently, someone who had a session with me, and the way I do channeled sessions is I've realized throughout the years how spirit works through me, how life force works through me. It's like I won't necessarily have to do much. I'll just have to be there and hold a specific space. And of course there's messages coming through all the time, but that's not the point. The point is that the life force, which is already innately in its principle of life, organically encoded and intelligent, and it knows its highest source, it knows its truth, so it always brings the truth back to the core. And what that does, it rearranges the things in the individual's lives so they become open more to what needs to be done and what other things need to unfold. Like the steps finally start presenting themselves. If, let's say, before they were locked in a specific field in the way in what they embody currently. So recently, this beautiful being reported to me they had a session with another healer I recommended, and I already mentioned her and I support her channel. Her name is Susan Ashley, and she's here on YouTube, and I've shared her link in one of the previous videos. And it's oftentimes that when you're ascending organically, your soul being will start finding pulling these energetic trajectories that need to be pulled into the core, like where you need to be. Okay, so what this means is that when the life force finally starts penetrating this purely organic matter, right, moving into what we call the body density, it will start to rearrange everything very naturally, just like the way mystical healing occurs organically in the same way. It's not a mental thought process. Thoughts play a huge role in that, but they're not the sufficient amount of what is required for true nature of ascension. Because healing and ascension, they're connected, but they're not the same. Ascension is like when all of the other aspects are let go of, magic happens, and it's like the spiral of spirit will do its own thing. So when this feedback was recently shared with me by that person who also went to seek out help with that healer, was they were finally ready to work on certain darker aspects and finish these contracts and things that still kept them at bay in a specific darkness that wanted to influence them, so they could move on to the next step. And this is how ascension unfolds organically. People who are ascending like this, right, they believe that ascension is like this, opening up to the pillar and then going up, 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 up. That's not what ascension is. Remember that spirit is an intelligently encoded spiral, and where I come from, my soul family, my oversoul group, we're actually working with currents of life force and how to generate them and just emanate them as pure fields of potential. And that potential cannot be sustained without understanding the feminine principle of life, because the feminine principle of life is the life-giving, birthing principle. Without the feminine aspect, you have no creation. So you have the masculine seed, right, and then the feminine womb. And together they create within Divine Trinity, the trilogy of light, this birth of the sacred cosmic divine child, and we often call it the Christ. So when I speak about the Christ in terms of our consciousness that's embodied, I always mention this divine child, which is our newly becoming human, the illumined human, the new human. That's the inner child within us becoming illumined, becoming Christed. Not just ensouled, but the soul that has mastered the principles of life and becoming Christ. So that doesn't happen without the feminine principle. And when we are living this life thinking that we're only needing to meditate and connect and go up, up and vertically ascend, we're going to miss the point, and we're truly not going to ascend. Well, we're going to each time ascend to a certain point, because you can do it, right, with consciousness, but then you're always going to hit a wall. And when you hit that wall, it means you haven't applied the principle of the spiral, which means you're stuck here in this place. And that is why a lot of people who have started waking up and they understand themselves to be ascending, but they hit this wall and they still feel there's a lack of understanding their purpose, or there's more to know and there's something they're not yet able to put together. And even though they might be beautiful beings and have a tremendously big heart and have only nothing but best intentions, there's still something preventing them to keep on expanding. When each time that is so, I just wish that people would start seeing and waking up to how simple this is. Because it's the masculine that informs us. It's the bringer of that. Like it brings the seed. It's like that electricity moving through us and informing us. But then it's the feminine that will give birth to that cultivation that needs to take place for us to even be able to embody that. Without the feminine principle, our earth, our beloved Gaia, cannot ascend. So she's now held in this womb of new creation. And because I've shared this with you before, the seed of Illumined Union was already planted within the earth sphere, and in my own mission team and our assignment here, we were very much a part of that process as volunteer souls, as illumined beloveds. But the thing is this, because a lot of this work was needed, I felt myself, I'm going to tell you my example here, I felt for the huge portion of this journey, I was needing to be the spiritual warrior, the active agent, applying the principle of sharing all this information, distributing it, even in my own work. It was so much this light distribution, which was very masculine. Now the feminine is more this nesting space, this womb space that allows that to even become a possible birth, right? So these principles of the masculine spiritual warrior and the feminine, this beautiful lover of life, need to be brought together into this Vesica Pisces Illumined Union formation. So on each of the levels we're moving through, as our earth also is organically ascending, there's a new level of opening up. And each time an informational infusion, which is multidimensional, remember that it's non-linear, will reach its maximum point, we're each going to hit a wall. This is not only for people who are trying to mentally ascend. We're each going through this. We're each going to have to apply this understanding of the masculine principle, which did it did its part, right? It was needing to bring the seed at this point, at this part of the potential that needs to be and blossom into being. But then it's the feminine that's like the spiral creates an opening, right? A gateway through this, then the masculine then breaks through, and then they become this joint union, right? Sometimes I indicate things with my hands. Please excuse me if that's somehow improper to you, but that's the way Spirit guides me sometimes. It just is what it is. So a lot of people have, at this time, in this age, become too mental. Everything now is mentally designed, and this whole matrix system is built in a way that keeps us in this locked mental mode, even when it comes to our ascension. So when the body is not used and worked with, we don't get the same results, right? And even things like yoga have both the feminine and masculine aspects of it, right? We know yang yoga, which is more active and based on like this building of the body, and then we have a yin yoga, which is very feminine and passive in a way. For me, yin yoga is what really creates the state of things moving, like the tantric life force within me moves. But there's nothing that gets me in the body as much as tantric dance, which it's not learned, it cannot be learned, because it's your body that will naturally respond to the currents of life and life force streaming through you, that will actually have to follow the pattern. That's why the mind has to be completely off. And knowing this, again, going back to the principle of the body needs to be as open, as soft at this time, so it will be able to detect when there was enough of this and when it's time for this and a breakthrough. When your body, because you've been ascending with and through the body, is intelligent enough, it will act as the most powerful guiding force for you. People who are only guided by thoughts in their head, voices in their head, ideas that come here, from here, but not like body organically guiding you, are not yet, or are at there's different levels, right, of ascension again. but they haven't begun and initiated this equalization of both masculine and feminine principles. Ascension, because it is a spiral of life, cannot be only masculine, cannot also be only feminine. But the reason why I'm talking about the feminine principle of life here is because it's become so pulled out of our whole picture in this life. It's become so distorted even. It's like uprooted, right? We needed to root it back now. Even when we look at the scriptures written, they were all mostly written by men. When I'm looking at, doesn't matter, even if it's independent media, there's still, most of the interviewed people there are male. And you might argue and say, well, if the masculine means information, which it doesn't, because there's levels of information. There's also the way the feminine informs life, right? And it's through intuitive principles. So when these knowledge-based researchers are coming out, usually they come through a masculine figure. And recently, I enjoyed so much when Susan also spoke about that on her channel called Susan and Cassandra. And she was saying the same thing, how the feminine is hidden or even completely eradicated from the whole picture, perspective of life. And yet, how can you understand life the way it truly functions through the principle of life and principles of creation if you omit an aspect of it? That's like half of it, right? And even what people talk about now is this twin flame movement and all of that. It's basically, in most cases, not what people perceive it to be. The twinning nature of our being is simply the movement of both of these forces for the true nature of organic ascension. It's the integration of polarity. While the truth about the twin flame or twin souls is something completely different. And recently I discovered this channel. It's called 3D to 5D. You can find it yourself online. Beautiful channel, beautiful spokesperson. She presents a lot of interesting information, and I saw one of her videos about this. It was probably one of the only resonating videos on this topic that I've seen in years. Because there's just so much distortion out there now, and so much disinformation that keeps people in this fantasizing mode, and instead of being and guided through life. So when you're ascending organically, you're less focused on the streams of information coming to you outside of you, or even guidance coming as voices, right? And some higher being than you, which you perceive to be giving you, feeding you information. What becomes of utter importance is following the spiral of your own ascension, which is also related to you remembering your soul roots, your lifetimes, which are not linear again, your galactic journey, especially if you're one of the galactic beings who are truly the true twin souls on Earth, who are volunteer souls. They're always volunteer souls. Everyone is created in this divine image and likeness, every spark. However, when we talk about volunteer souls who carry this galactic presence, is exactly what that is. And it's not the same as the integration of polarity. So these beings usually already hold the essence of Christ. But when we come into bodies, we need to resurrect that. We need to return to that and bring it to this body. Even though a lot of us who are galactic beings, we've done this before. We've already been ascending on several stations of life. So we understood, and therefore we have the knowledge of the feminine principle. So you might see light as the only contributor to what ascension is, and you just want to feed more light into yourself. And you might say light is information. But without the creativity, which opens you up to even being able to sustain that light, to lift the liquid quotient, because being open to light is not naturally the same as you embodying liquid light quotient and raising that quotient within you, which then raises your frequency. And then you become vibrationally altered. You transform. You transmute, you transfigure. So it is so much nowadays, still, in these times, it's still so much hidden. And people I'm seeing are pursuing and giving the value to information more than this process of returning to the body. But this is the time now. As you can see, the reason why all this is happening on our planet the way it is for people to become informed from within, is for people to return to their bodies. This is the initiation within the body. This is the gateway for the physical body. And just a few weeks ago, when this whole thing began, I actually received oracle cards, physical body and the gateway. And then usually when I get messages, I like make the association, and then I hear it's like a signal, it's impulsive light that informs me what this is about. It was very clearly evident that this is the gateway now for the physical body. A lot of people have been doing major preparations for their ascension. They have. But still, the work hasn't been done physically. I've been doing this physical ascension thing for a few years now. It's not where I started. I started waking up in the same matrix as everyone else. But I had to break through all of the programs, all of the false beliefs, all the distortions, and there was a construct instead of organic essence of life. And there's many constructs, and I know sometimes it sounds scary and people don't want to wake up to that fact that there's so many programs written into every aspect and fabric of our life, because they are. But remember, life, as in pure life force essence of Holy Spirit, is beyond anything. No program will ever be able to override it once you wake up to it, once you return to it, and you start doing the work of Christ embodiment, bringing and raising that light quotient. And there is no other way but to engage the body, because you are taking the body with you. The body is your most precious creation. And again, it's not just a vehicle for spirit. So recently I channeled this mantra. It is very simple. Spirit gave it to me. It's so simple, but it like instantly connects you to the element of light, vertical, and the horizontal, and then the spiral is created. Electric and magnetic. Giving, receiving. Right? So let us say together now. I am the pillar of light. I am the vehicle for spirit. I'm a channel of divine grace. And I would add, and I embody the Christ, or I am the embodiment of Christ. So there's so much now present, which comes more with the notion of ideology. And we've been fed these ideologies and constructs since we were babies, right? And remember then how much work of unplugging from that is truly required. And the masculine doesn't do that, the feminine does. She's the one that retreats in the cave. You know, even in the ancient scriptures, even though the masters were always presented like masculines, right? Even they had to take their pilgrimage into the cave. Usually that's the symbolism. And I think that's one of the last remnants of the feminine that remained, like the masculine going into the cave. And even at this time, we can see how the masculine needs to become the more dormant force, and the feminine needs to become a more active force. Because if we want to birth this new aspect of life, we are giving birth to this new creation cycle. The feminine needs to lead the way, the feminine principle. That has nothing to do with gender or gender roles. It's not a gender specific thing. It is the principle of life. It is the way life is created. It is the way creation arises from light and love. Light, information, love, creativity. So you can't ascend just by reading books, doing mantras, following channels. Specifically, these are archangelic channels. Again, the word archangel has been, just like everything else, infiltrated through the archonic principle. So a lot of these channels, especially those with robotic voices, and you know, I remember years ago when I was just waking up and I didn't know anything about this. There was this man I've gotten to know, and he told me, well, Metatron is not like just an angelic force. He said he's also a program. Did you know that? And at that point I was like, what the heck, I don't know anything about this, because I was just beginning. And I put that to the side because it wasn't my time yet. But then information came organically. That's the beauty of Ascension. Even though you're not ready or prepared for something yet at a specific time, it catches up with you. The feminine is so intelligent. It's like bringing you things naturally. All you have to do is receive and say, yes, now I'm ready, right? So the masculine will keep informing us. The feminine needs to be open and ready to receive. So you can be as informed as you want to be, but if you're not open within the feminine principle, you're not going to embody that which you're meant to receive. And only the embodiment leads to the raising of the light quotient, and that leads to actually vibrational alteration, leads to the new octave of our being, which leads to us becoming new, like literally transfixed within the new. So again, each body is a unique design. We all have the seed of life within, but each body is different. So each body might attune to the embodiment process differently, and that is why no one can tell you when, how, what to do. Life force will rearrange everything for you. And that is why I've been teaching life force mastery and cultivation for years now. And I don't just teach it, I live it. So I will feel it myself in my own body. If I'm too much for a specific amount of time, too much in the masculine, it's like when it's needed and it's there, and I'll feel awesome. I feel great. That's when it's natural for it to be the more governing force. But then at a certain point, the body will stop, and it will, although you're a multidimensional being, it will tell you, stop, halt, processing, processing, processing. And then you're going to have to unwind and allow the feminine to then take the central stage. This is how Ascension really goes. It's like, you know, both ends of the spiral, the yin and the yang. That's really what the integration of polarity means. And it's an interesting journey because each one of us are traveling through this spiral individually, because it's our own spiral. Just like we're a part of the collective process, it is our own spiral. No one can tell us where we are now on this specific part of this spiral. We're going to have to figure it out ourselves, because otherwise we're not the one ascending, right? Someone is trying to do it through us, and it can be done. What is also important here to know is, because it does affect the body, I remember years back when this was still so much of a new age for me and exploring that realm, it's like a lot of people were saying, oh, eating that doesn't affect me because I know how to raise my frequency. Or people were saying, oh, you know, you can smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol and you can still ascend, because, you know, you can just connect in meditation and instantly you raise your frequency. I couldn't disagree more, because it's such baloney, truly. It's like saying, well, you know, things come to me, I don't have to do anything. I can be totally disrespectful to my body plus the body of Gaia, because when you're doing those things, you're disrespecting the planet as well. So recently, this channel that I recommended to you, called 3D to 5D, by this beautiful, powerful lady as the hostess, she mentioned something about, it was a beautiful representation of the way alcohol works, and how in, I think it was Arabic or Islamic, I don't know, language, it actually directly translates into, it's like spirits, right? Which means it's meant to distill, or, you know, take the essence of something, which means for us is the same. It's like we're de-essencing ourselves. It's not a word, right? But you know what I mean. And it's basically we're becoming open and susceptible to these lower energies and forces, demonic beings, and all of that. And all of that is true. And people, I remember, who were saying the opposite, how nothing can affect them because they're a master. Again, another program, because the forces that be, the dark, controlling, oppressive forces, want people to do nothing and still believe they're ascending. Ascension is work. It's a beautiful work, because when you go to nature like I did today and you start doing the life force dance, I mean, there's no greater bliss than that, truly, for me. The feminine will show you, it's my time now. You know, when I work with my group, sometimes we're very much in the field with the work, and then they're going to tell me, Now we rest. Now we enjoy the body. Tick, and they go. And sometimes I'm blank for a few days. I get zero, nothing, like instructions, nothing, because they want me to be in the feminine essence and feminine mode at that particular time, because we're again joining one aspect. We're rejoining that. So it's a constant state of doing this. It's not like, oh, I've mastered my feminine and masculine, and so it means I'm ascended. Well, again, I would tend to disagree, because there's levels, you know, and again, reality is layered. That's the main key factor we talk about now. For a few weeks, it's our main theme, right? And to know this, it's like even our sun. Every time you go out on the sun, it has new light codes, right? It's new. Every day you go outside, the etheric substance that surrounds this field, this planet, this nature, it's emanating, exuding light from it. It's different. So the terrain, the visual aspect might see the same, appear to be the same, but it's not. So things are gradually shifting all the time. And there's these subtle alterations to the vitality of our body and how we're physically being reconfigured all the time do apply to the feminine principle of life. So I remember years back, I discovered this field of work. I don't know the name, but there were these tremendous amounts of books about ascension and being this level, that level, that level. It was all very structured and masculine. And the writer, I was just read one sentence, said something about, now I'm in this 33rd level of this and this mastery. And I was like, oh, it just didn't feel right. It felt mental. And a lot of people, I would say, they choose that experience and they can come very far. You can come very far this way. But not in embodiment. Not in necessarily bringing that back to matter. That's why those who are volunteer souls have specifically offered themselves. They've made the sacred offering. In a way, it's a sacred sacrifice as well, to bring this to this planet. To do that life force work and then bring that essence back to the planet. Because she's ascending, and that was our gift to her. And that's the feminine gift, because you do come to the planet. Our own volunteering was feminine in its nature as well, in our beautiful orchestration of it, because if we only did that work with the light, we wouldn't necessarily have to take up these bodies, right? We chose to be present physically with Mother Earth, with the essence of Gaia and her ascension, and with the people who are undergoing this for the first time as the planet. So it's a lot to take in for some people, and many would get appalled thinking, well, that's very dualistic, and it's not. It's dualistic to think that you can only ascend vertically, because you don't have any idea what life is if that's what you're doing. Because the first, for me, when you start waking up, but when you start ascending, it's a different thing. Because there's waking up and then there's ascension, right? And one can lead to the other, or you can just stay awakened but not doing the work that leads you onward. For me, there's nothing more important when you begin with your ascension than deeply understanding life at its core. And then bringing that element of what you call gnosis to loving life, being a lover of life, holding this beloved. So I will see and witness this myself. If I'm too much for too long amount of time in the more masculine presentation and experience, I will no longer be able to feel the beloved essence. And I know when I feel it, because it's this constant upsurging, and it's this deep, profound union that I feel in my body, and it's just ecstatic. But I won't feel it when I'm in this masculine for longer periods of time. And the body is so intelligent, because it will naturally tell you, I'm no longer feeling it. That's why it says processing, processing, processing. Leave me alone, because I want to get back now. I want to integrate all that I've come into now in this light activation, and I want to process it, and I want to become it, and I want to bring myself to the next step of the spiral. And as you know, spiral is like this. So sometimes you might feel you're descending and retrograding, but you're not. You're just on the sphere of the spiral that ties in with a specific timeline, that you still have something there, some work to do, Doesn't mean you've now regressed. That's what organic ascension is. The mental construct of ascension only goes up, 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 right? It's vertical. It's this ideology, now you become an ascended master, and you know, for me, it's not about that. And I love how Susan even said, the word master, like what does it even mean? It's like it creates duality, and in higher realms they don't use this word, only we do on earth. That's why I prefer saying mastering yourself, but a word master, like being a master, it sounds limiting to me. I've been using it in the beginning stages of my awakening, but then it felt like at a certain point it just no longer served its purpose. So you see, every aspect of life has a purpose to serve, even when you wake up within a program. But just know this, when you're ascending organically, every information you will receive about yourself will come from you. You'll get sources, they'll trigger you. They'll trigger you to go deeper, to dig into a specific area, need some digging. But eventually even that will bring you back to you. So you only know yourself when information comes through you. And I was doing lots of reading and these New Age books for a certain amount of time. And then it just didn't feel good anymore. A specific point, I couldn't. And then I remember things that I was reading once in those books and put aside came to me through me in my own way, but only in specifically how they relate to me, because I was following the journey of my own oversoul and where it began and how it began and why I'm here now. And this came through me. No channel on earth could give me that information because it is not their business anyway. We can all assist each other. We can help the healing parts of our journey. We can guide. And when I do the sessions, like I said, most of the work I do, it's not from me. It's just spirit, life force coming, because that's the essence of my oversoul. That's the work we do. That's my gift. I'm not specifically a healer. I'm more of a guide. And being a guide, it's like being the vehicle, and then the guiding light just comes forth. That's the way I operate. And it took me time to discover that. It wasn't like in an instant. So when people expect to just know about themselves fully in a flash, or someone to tell them, they're still here. Here you will start trusting the process in your heart. And that's why even today I'm wearing my pink kunzite, which is, for me, it's a very feminine stone. It's so deeply feminine. It instantly brings you back to that love. It's beautiful. So basically that's what I wanted to talk about today. And remember, the last message I want to end up with here is, even with all this talk about darkness, and you know, it sometimes makes us feel we need to do more than we should really be doing, because it's not always more that we're actually doing when we think we need to do more. Remember, in truth, whatever is being presented now at this time, the darkness in itself and the way it's expressing now on this planet, it's like gripping for its last few pieces of air, breaths of air. It's like, I feel like I'm being shown that the only card that the darkness still has left to play is the illusion of this deception that it's more powerful than it actually is. And that's what a lot of people tend to believe if they're only seeing the surface of things, if they don't connect within the essence of life. Because that's kind of like the last trickster card they're going to play, deceiving us that it's more powerful than in truth it is, because it's not as powerful anymore. Things have changed. Things are still changing, and they will continue to. So go back to your body in any way you can. Always. This life is not just about esoteric teachings and I am presence, and it's about so much more. It's about love. Because that's how the I am expresses. It's the demonstration of that presence through love. And that's the beauty of, and the mystery of cosmic Christ in the making. And we are here to witness it and experience it together. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm here. That's why you are here. And our global family of the light beings is here. So again, thank you all for watching. And I'm sending you so much love, as always, with grace of the feminine. Let us move into this time with embracing the feminine more as we did before, because it's time. It's calling. She is calling. The mother within, the mother without, the mother of all life. Here it is. Bye for now.